So I know if you guys are anything like me, y'all are super eager to get out in the garden, and it kind of stinks that we can't start growing some of the things that we want to grow. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, we can start them indoors, but we can't actually put those out in the garden yet. But a lot of gardeners don't know that there are actually a lot of plants that you can actually put in the ground or in your raised bed, in your containers, in March. You can plant them and you can actually get them started growing. That's what today's video is going to be all about. I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 5 favorite plants that you can actually start growing in March. Guys, for those of you that don't know, I am Nick. This is my YouTube channel, The Bravo 6 Gardener. If you guys want to see more how-tos, tips, and tutorials on gardening, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. That way you guys don't miss the next how-to video that I post on gardening, and you get notified whenever I post a video. Also, guys, make sure you stay tuned till the end of the video. I'm going to share with you guys a few tips that are going to help accelerate your growing process in the cold, because it can be a little bit slow to grow when we're starting stuff out in March. So make sure you stay tuned till the end of the video. I'm going to share some tips to get these vegetables started off on the right track. Now, obviously, a lot of you guys are not going to live in the exact same location. That's okay. The plants I'm going to be sharing with you guys are all super cold hardy. Some of them you could actually start a little bit earlier. You could start as early as February. Just depends on if your ground is workable and the soil has warmed up. And just keep in mind, when we're growing these in the colder weather, germination time is going to be significantly slower. So don't freak out if they don't start popping out of the ground in the time frame that they normally would. It is going to take a little bit longer for these guys to start growing since it's cold. So we're going to get right into it, guys. I'm going to share with y'all my top 5 favorite vegetables that you can get started in the ground in March. And the first one is going to be lettuce. So lettuce is actually one of my all-time favorite vegetables to grow. The one that I like to grow the most is the Tango leaf lettuce. I find this variety actually grows better than most lettuces in the winter or in the cold. The crinkles on this lettuce actually help prevent this getting damaged from the cold. And a quick tip about lettuce that a lot of people don't know, you can do what's called high intensity planting with lettuce. So a lot of people will typically do the regular spacing, 8-10 inches apart, almost a foot. You can plant these all directly right next to each other, like literally seeds 1 inch apart, and they will actually all grow happily right next to each other. You can actually get much higher yields when you plant like that. So definitely recommend growing the lettuce in March, one of my favorite plants to grow. Next vegetable that we can grow in March is going to be kale. So my favorite variety of kale to grow is the scarlet kale. I just think it looks really stunning. This one I find is actually a little bit sweeter than most. Obviously, some kales can have a little bit of a bitter taste to them. I find you don't get that nearly as much with the scarlet kale. So if you get this started in March and mature it into the early summer, it's going to result in a really nice harvest, and it's going to end up giving you some really sweet, really good tasting kale. Another one of my favorite vegetables to grow in my garden, and it's really easy to grow too. So I usually do 1 or 2 plants per pot. You just stick a seed down in there. Again, with it being cold out, it's going to take a little bit longer to germinate, but this is super easy to grow, super fun, tastes really good. So the next vegetable that we can get started in March is going to be radishes. Radishes are super fun, super easy to grow for beginning gardeners. Basically just space these guys 2 or 3 inches apart, give them a little bit of room to grow. Again, it's going to take a little bit longer for them to grow, and these will tolerate frost too. Again, they're not going to love it obviously, but they'll survive through a frost. And again, this is another one of my favorite vegetables to grow. You can grow them in ground, you can do them in containers, raised beds, however you want to do them. These will do just fine in March, and they will mature either into early April or kind of mid-April. Again, we don't want to grow them in super hot weather. They'll get really bitter and harsh on you. So a March to April planting is going to give you a really nice harvest for radishes. And the next vegetable that we can get started in March is going to be carrots. So my favorite variety to grow is the Nantes or Nantes Corliss, however you say that. This variety just gives you a really long, really thick, kind of just uniform carrot that's pretty easy to grow. Again, carrots are going to take a good while to get germinated, especially with it being cold out. But again, they're going to do just fine in March. They'll tolerate a frost. Some people do the board technique where you actually put a board flat on them. I've done it both ways. You can honestly do it either or. I didn't see a huge difference. I usually just do mine in the ground. I don't worry about putting a board over top of them, and they grow just fine. And again, starting these in March and harvesting them before it gets hot out is going to result in a much sweeter, better tasting, in my opinion, fine vegetable for you. If you harvest these when it gets really, really hot out, they're not going to taste bad, but you do get a kind of a chemical reaction that occurs in the cold with a lot of vegetables, carrots being one of them, that is going to result in a really nice tasting, really sweet carrot. And last but not least, my fifth vegetable that we can get started here in March is going to be spinach. So again, spinach is super, super cold hardy. The giant noble spinach can actually survive all the way through winter, and it actually doesn't even need anything covering it to survive. I mean, it'll do better obviously if you cover it with some plastic or put it in a greenhouse, but you can just put this in the ground or in a raised bed and it will survive all through winter, which I think is really cool. But again, you can plant this in March. It's going to be sweeter in the cold. We're kind of seeing a pattern here, right? If it's grown in the cold, it's going to be a little bit sweeter. It's going to take a little bit longer to germinate again, so don't freak out if a week or 2 weeks has gone by and it's not germinating. Give it time. It takes longer in the cold. This one is so easy to grow. You can do it in containers, raised beds, in the ground, again, however you want to. I like to grow these in containers. I usually do 2 or 3 in a 18-inch container. Now, as far as tips to kind of get these vegetables started off on the right track, now this is not necessary, but something I like to do to kind of accelerate the process. I like to cover them up with a plastic tarp a week before I actually grow them. And what this is going to do is basically just help the soil warm up quicker. With having that plastic cover over the soil, it's going to warm up much more quickly, and it's basically going to allow your soil to be worked much more easy, and it's going to allow your seeds to germinate much more quickly. Also, when growing in the cold, plants are going to grow much more effectively either in containers or raised beds. When we're growing in containers and raised beds, it allows the soil to warm up much more quickly since it's elevated off the ground. So ideally, with a lot of these vegetables, you're going to want to try to use some form of cold protection. They don't need protection, but they're going to do a little bit better, and again, it's going to start them off on a little bit quicker foot if you do use some kind of protection. So either using a low tunnel, that's basically the metal poles, and putting a plastic tarp over top of that, or a greenhouse. A lot of us don't have means to some of that, or we don't have the room to do something like that. So it's okay if you can't do that. I have a greenhouse that I'm starting a lot of my stuff in. I'll put a picture up so you guys can actually see it. This thing is awesome. I got this thing for like 50 some dollars. I think like $55 on Amazon. It's super lightweight. It's portable. I'll put a link down below. I actually bought this on Amazon so you guys can check it out and get an idea. I think it's a really good value, honestly, for $55 as far as just giving you a small greenhouse, something to put in the backyard to put plants in. Kind of some DIY things you can do. You can actually take like a clear plastic tote and you can use that as a kind of like a mini greenhouse. It's going to give you a microclimate, and it's basically going to help protect from frost, and it's going to help warm up the plants a little bit. You can even do something as small as like cutting a water bottle in half, and you use the top half of the water bottle and just stick it down on top of the seed. That's going to give it enough protection from the cold and enough extra absorption of sunlight to help it warm up that much quicker. And guys, that's pretty much all I have for you today. Again, my top 5 favorites. There's definitely more stuff you can grow in winter or in March. You can grow sugar snap peas. Obviously, there's stuff you can start indoors. These are just my top favorites that I like growing. I've actually got a few of these started already myself. I've got lettuce, kale, I've got spinach started, and I'm actually gonna go out and plant some radishes and some carrots right now. Again, guys, I'm Nick. This is my YouTube channel, The Bravo 6 Gardener. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would super appreciate a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you guys don't miss the next video I post. And also don't forget to turn on the bell notifications. That way you guys get notified whenever I post a video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.